channel, Between the Pages. Today I'm drinking a coffee that I made at home. It's caramel and vanilla. It's pretty good. But I tried some of the low calorie caramel. I like the Torani's like sugar-free caramel. To me, it doesn't taste sugar-free. That does, but it's not horrible. Most of the time, I would rather just drink the full sugar. But if I'm on a kick of like sweet coffees, one every day is probably not the best. So trying to find something a little bit healthier. But anyways, still working on this blanket. I'm ready to get through with it. I think having to, not completely restart, but having to go back and redo the majority of it really tested my patience with it. So I'm ready to be done. Anyways, that's all I have to say. So let's get into the video. Today we're going to be doing the plot of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. This is the second book chronologically and the first book in publication order of the Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. Now, at the beginning of this book, we meet our new main characters, the four Pevensey children, Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy. We learn that the Pevensey children are actually from London, but they are sent to live in the country to escape any potential bombings of London because this is during a time of war. The book does not mention specifically what war, but we can all guess. The children are sent to a random house with a random guy out in the country, and this man turns out to be none other than Professor Kirk, which is Diggory Kirk from the last book. They find Professor Kirk to be a very nice old man, although I don't think they really get to see him that much. They're kind of left to their own devices. There is also a housekeeper that they see a little bit, but she also doesn't have much to do with them. The only thing that she says is that whenever she is touring people throughout the house, they stay out of her way and just find something to do that will not bother them, because the professor is really famous, and I think his house is too. I really don't know why, but people come through to tour the house every so often. One of the first days that the children are there, they go about exploring the house. This is a really big house, and they want to see what else there. So they're going from room to room, looking at everything, when they come to a room that is almost completely bare except for a wardrobe. The children quickly pass through this room, although Lucy, being the youngest and the last in the line of her siblings as they're walking from room to room, she stays behind and just has the thought to look into the wardrobe. So she opens the door, she climbs in, and is filling the coats, and she just keeps walking, and she can't find the back of it, and she eventually finds herself in a wood in the wardrobe, and it's very snowy. I think it's evening time, and she's looking around. She sees a lamppost up ahead, which is very odd because it's in the middle of the woods, but she's looking around, and up ahead she sees a fawn, the mythical creature fawn, F-A-U-N. It's half goat, half man. I believe Lucy startles the fawn, and he drops some packages that he has in his hand. She apologizes, they both pick them up. The fawn introduces himself as Mr. Tumnus, and he just starts talking to Lucy, and he finds out that she is a daughter of Eve, although Lucy doesn't really know what that means. I did not explain this in the last book, although I meant to, because I believe Polly and Diggory are called son of Adam and daughter of Eve, but that is the terminology in Narnia for people from our world. So whenever it's daughter of Eve, son of Adam, is talking about children or people from our world, because there are humans in Narnia and the surrounding countries, but the people from our world are only ever the ones called sons of Adam or daughters of Eve. Anyways, as soon as Mr. Tumnus finds out that she is a daughter of Eve, he invites her over to his house. She agrees. They go to get to his house. He makes her think something to eat, to drink. She sits down by the fire, and Mr. Tumnus begins playing the flute. And the music is very strange, and it makes Lucy very sleepy. And she's dozing off, and all of a sudden, she jumps awake. I think, at least she thinks it's been a couple hours. I don't know if it actually has or not. But she jumps up and she's like, oh, Mr. Tumnus, I'm so sorry, but I've got to go. My siblings are going to be worried about me, wondering where I'm at. I had to have been here for hours. And Mr. Tumnus is kind of telling her to, oh, it's okay. You can stay here for a little bit longer. Just keep sitting there by the fire. It's all right. And Lucy is very insistent that she has to go. And all of a sudden, Mr. Tumnus bursts into tears. And now Lucy's wondering what she said or did to make Mr. Tumnus so upset. She gives Mr. Tumnus her handkerchief, and he eventually tells her what has made him so upset. So Narnia is being ruled by an evil queen who is not the rightful queen of Narnia, but she took over the throne. And since she's started her reign, she has thrown Narnia into this endless winter where it's always winter time, never Christmas. Father Christmas is not allowed in Narnia. And this has been going on, I think, as long as Mr. Tumnus has been alive, which I don't know how long fawns live. Like, every mythical creature I think has like their own little lifespan. I don't know how long Mr. Tumnus has been alive, but it's been like this at least as long as he can remember, and it went all the way back to when his father was alive, and his father is no longer with us. So it's been going on a long time. And he also tells Lucy that the witch has told everyone, specifically Mr. Tumnus. I think there are some people that are sort of employed by her, but not really. I don't know, it's kind of confusing to me, and it's been a bit since I've read the book and listened to the audiobook, so forgive me if this is not 100% correct, but she's told specific people, or maybe everyone in Narnia, that if they ever meet a son of Adam or a daughter of Eve, to immediately turn them into her. And that's what Mr. Tumnus is so upset about. And Lucy's like, well, surely you haven't done it. Like, it's okay if you know, yeah, you've been employed by her, but you haven't done it. It's all right. You don't have to be so upset. And he's like, well, don't you see I'm doing it right now? And this is when it clicks to Lucy that, oh, I'm the daughter of Eve that you're supposed to turn into this evil queen. And she kind of gets a little frenzied naturally. And she's like, oh, well, you can't do it now. Like, I've got to get home. And he's like, yeah, you're right. I'm not going to do it. I would never forgive myself. And what would my father think if he knew that I had done this evil thing? I can't take you because we never know who's on the queen's side and who's not. Even some of the trees could be on her side. But, like, if you can make it to the lamppost, make it back home, you're free to go. She's like, yeah, I can. And she heads back towards the lamppost. She keeps going and finds herself back in the wardrobe and back into our world. Another quick note before I go on, I forgot, is that we do learn with Mr. Tumnus that the White Witch, whenever someone crosses her, she either does away with them or tortures them. Don't know if that word's safe for YouTube. Or she turns them into a stone statue, and her castle is filled with stone statues of people who have crossed her. So we do learn that with Mr. Tumnus, and that's why he was so scared of the White Witch. Not necessarily because he wanted this and he wanted to do this, but also he was scared of what might happen to him. Now, as soon as Lucy walks out of the wardrobe, she runs out of the room where her siblings are still in the little hallway, corridor, whatever, outside of the room. And she's like, it's all right. I've come back. I'm back. I'm okay. And everybody's like, what are you talking about? And Edmund, like, calls her crazy, basically. And she's like, I've come back. I've been gone for such a long time. There's a wood in the wardrobe, and I met a fawn, and there's an evil witch. But I've come back. I'm okay. And they think that she's just playing a game, that maybe she had hid from them and they didn't find her. And she's kind of like making up a little game. And they're just kind of like, what you talking about, Lucy? But she's very insistent. And one thing about Lucy is she's always been very truthful. So she's never been one to like play imaginative games and then pretend that they were real. She's always been very truthful about playing imaginary games and knowing that it's her imagination. So, to humor her, her siblings go to the wardrobe, they look behind the coats, and they just see the back of a wardrobe. And Lucy gets very upset that she's not believed by her siblings. And I think Edmund continues to kind of bully her, kind of make fun of her, because that's kind of how he is. He's not the nicest. But Lucy eventually just runs away crying because nobody believes her and she knows what she saw. Fast forward some time and it's raining outside and the children have to find something fun to do. They decide to play hide and seek inside, and one of the two older children, I don't remember who, is it. And Lucy, being really young and also kind of alone feeling about this world called Narnia, like she believes it, she believes what she saw, but nobody believes her. She goes and hides in the wardrobe, and Edmund, wanting to bully her even more, follows her. So Edmund walks into the room right as Lucy is disappearing into the wardrobe, and he climbs in there and he's trying to scare her, but he's feeling around and he can't find her. And he also can't find the back of the wardrobe. And Edmund too finds himself in the snowy wood. And at this point, he's calling out to Lucy. He's like, "Hey, Lucy, so, I'm sorry. You were telling the truth, but, you don't be mean to me now. Like, I'm really sorry. Please come find me. I don't know where I'm at." And there's no response. So Edmund is looking around, and in the distance, he hears the sound of bells, and it's getting closer to him. He sees a sleigh being driven by reindeer with bells on their harnesses. Driving the sleigh is a short little man, which is a dwarf. And sitting in the back of the sleigh is a very tall and, according to Edmund, very beautiful woman. The woman tells the dwarf to stop the sleigh, and he does, and she looks down at Edmund and she's kind of harsh to him, wondering where he's coming from, who he is, and she finds out that he is a son of Adam, which Edmund doesn't know what that means, but she finds out. And as soon as she finds out this little bit of information, she switches up completely. Sounds familiar. But she's like, "Oh, you poor thing. You must be absolutely freezing. How about you come up here, sit beside me. I'll cover you up with this little blanket. You must be so cold. And you know what would warm you up? A nice hot drink." So she takes her little magic wand out, makes him something to drink. And she's like, "I bet you're also starving. How about I make your favorite food? What is your favorite food?" And he says, "A Turkish delight." So she makes him some magical Turkish delight. And it's especially magical because the more you eat it, the more you want to eat it. So Edmund is stuffing his face, and the whole time the witch is asking questions, and Edmund is giving away all of the answers as if he cares about no one but himself, which is, yeah, that pretty much sums up who he is as a person. So he lets the queen know that he is from another world, which she's already figured that out, that he has 2 sisters and a brother, and that his sister has been to Narnia before, and that she was taken in by a faun called Mr. Tumnus, and that she was snuck in and snuck back out, and that this place was supposedly run by this evil queen, but Edmund doesn't really see how evil she could be. Like, he kind of likes her and he thinks everybody else is the mean ones, and he is just giving her all of this information that she does not need to know. But anyways, after that, the queen is like, "Oh, well, you know what, Edmund, I really like you, and you know what, I never had kids of my own. Man, I really wanted kids, but I never had them, and I need someone to take the throne when I die. So how about you come back with me to my castle, and you can be my prince, and then when I am gone. You can be the king. But in order to do that, I need you to bring your siblings with you. All 3 of them. I need all 4 of you in my castle. And they don't really need to have any special titles or anything. They can just be dukes and duchesses, and they can serve you for the rest of your life. And Edmund's like, I mean, they're really not that special. Why can't I just go to your castle now and get me some more Turkish delight? And she's like, shoves him off the sleigh, and she's like, come back. But don't do it without your siblings, because I would not be very happy. And she scoots. She gets out of there. So Edmund's like, okay. So Edmund starts walking back to the lamppost, and he meets up with Lucy. And Lucy's like, oh my gosh, Edmund, you're here. See, like, now you know that I'm telling the truth, and you can tell Peter and Susan that I was telling the truth. And Mr. Tumnus is okay. He, like, I went and saw him, and the witch didn't find out, and it's just amazing. So they go back through the wardrobe, and they find Peter and Susan, and Lucy's like, Peter, Susan, Edmund, come with me. He found the wood in the wardrobe. And like, now he can tell you, like, he can prove that I'm not making this up. And Edmund's like, yeah, we played games in the wardrobe. It was a lot of fun. Good imagination Lucy has there. And Lucy, poor sweet little Lucy, bursts into tears and runs off. And Peter goes off on Edmund. I'm not going to find the conversation, but Peter goes off on Edmund. I was like, you go, Peter. But after this, Edmund mouths off and storms off, and he's in a bad mood now. And Peter and Susan are kind of left. They're like, well, what do we do? Lucy's going crazy, and Edmund's, I mean, not being much different than he always has, but, And they decide to go speak to the professor, because they might need to, like, write a letter to their parents and tell them that Lucy's going crazy. She's not handling the separation from her parents very well. So they go, they talk to the professor. Just going to recap. He asks the children who would be the most believable out of their 2 siblings in any other circumstance. And they both said, up until now, it would have been Lucy. She's always been very truthful. And Edmund, not so much. And he's like, okay, well, she's not crazy. She's too young to be crazy. She doesn't look crazy, so she can't be crazy. And there's, like, some other evidence, like the fact that she, like, if she were making up games, she would have hid for more than a few moments and then say, oh, look, I've come back. Like, that makes it even more believable that she actually went somewhere, because if there is another world, according to the professor, if there's another world, it would have a different time than us. And I think he might give one other reason, maybe not, I don't know. But he basically tells them that for now, just go along as if Lucy's telling the truth. So they do. Now, fast forward to when the housekeeper is touring a group of people around the house, and the children are, like, running from room to room trying to stay out of her way. And it seems like every room they come into, they hear her and the guests outside of that door, until they finally find themselves in the room with the wardrobe. And once again, the children hear the housekeeper outside the door, so they all climb into the wardrobe to try to escape her. So they climb in the wardrobe, and they're all stuffed in there, and they notice it's kind of cold in there, and the coats start to feel a lot pointier, and the 4 children find themselves in Narnia. So at this point, Peter and Susan are like, wow, Lucy, forgive us for thinking that you were making up stories. And at some point, very early on, Edmund says something that gives it away, and Peter kind of gets on him again about lying, and he's like, oh, so you were here, and you were just being mean to Lucy. And Edmund gets upset by it, and he gets all huffy and quiet. Since Lucy was the first one to go to Narnia, they allow Lucy to be the leader, and she decides to take them to Mr. Tumnus's house. So they're walking to Mr. Tumnus's house, and they get there, and they see that the house is in shambles. It looks like it has been ransacked. The door is busted open. Once they get inside, the ashes from the fireplace are spread all over the room. There's broken glass and broken furniture all over the place, and they find a paper nailed somewhere. This is what it says. The former occupant of these premises, Fawn Tumnus, is under arrest and awaiting his trial on a charge of high treason against Her Imperial Majesty Jadis, Queen of Narnia, Chatelaine of Cair Paravel, Empress of the Lone Islands, etc., also of comforting her said Majesty's enemies, harboring spies, and fraternizing with humans. Signed, Fenris Ulf, Captain of the Secret Police. He's a wolf. And at the bottom it says, "Long live the Queen," in all caps. So, Mr. Tumnus has been found out. The very person that he was harboring is Lucy. So, Lucy is understandably upset. She sees Mr. Tumnus as a friend, and they don't know what to do. So, they all walk out of Mr. Tumnus's house, and they're just kind of standing there talking when a very bright bird flies up and lands on a branch not far from them. One of the children wonder if maybe it is a talking bird, and they try to talk to it, and although the bird doesn't talk back, it does fly away to another branch a little bit further away, and one of the children believe that maybe the bird wants them to follow it. So they start following this bird, and they're going deeper and deeper into the forest until the bird just up and flies away. Now, at this point, the children are like, well, we're in trouble. We don't know where we're at, and we don't know what to do, how to get back. And in the distance, through some of the trees, they see a figure moving. But understandably, they're in this world that they don't know anything about, and they hear that there's some good people, some bad people. They don't know what to believe, so they're kind of quiet. So I think they call out to the animal. It comes up to them. It is a beaver, Mr. Beaver, and he tells them to follow him. And the children are still a bit cautious, but they follow him a little ways. They're trying to ask him questions, and he just won't really talk. He's just beckoning them further into the woods. When they finally get to some area in the forest, I think it may be a little clearing or a little spot that's a little bit more hidden and secluded, and Mr. Beaver just says, "Hey, I was sent here to get you. Follow me. We've got to be careful. We don't know who's on her side. Even some of the trees may be on her side." And I think it's Peter says, "Well, how do we know we can trust you?" And Mr. Beaver pulls a handkerchief out of his pocket, and Lucy's like, "Oh, that's my handkerchief. I gave it to Mr. Tumnus." And Mr. Beaver says that Mr. Tumnus caught wind of the fact that he was going to be arrested before he did, and he gave the handkerchief to Mr. Beaver so that he could come and get the children if they were to come back to Narnia. So Mr. Beaver takes the children to his home. They meet Mrs. Beaver. They help the Beavers prepare dinner, and then they sit down for dinner, and this is when the Pevensey children are told really what's going on in Narnia and why they are there. So first of all, they're told that Aslan is on the way to Narnia. He might even already be there. They don't know who Aslan is, but Mr. Beaver clues them in onto who he is. There's a rhyme in Narnia that says, "Wrong will be right when Aslan comes in sight. At the sound of his roar, sorrows will be no more. When he bares his teeth, winter meets its death. And when he shakes his mane, we shall have spring again." So the rumor that Aslan is coming to Narnia, that he's possibly already there, lets the true Narnians on Aslan's side know that the White Witch's reign is coming soon to an end. And the White Witch, hearing this rumor, will be extra on her guard than she always has been. Now, at this point, the children are like, okay, but how are we important? Because Mr. Beaver tells them that he's going to be the one to bring them to the stone table, which is a monument kind of in Narnia, and that's where Aslan's going to be when he gets to Narnia. And the children are like, okay, how are we important? And there's another rhyme. It says, "When Adam's flesh and Adam's bone sits at Cair Paravel enthroned, the evil time will be over and done." Cair Paravel is a palace on the sea that I don't know if all kings and queens of Narnia have like been in that palace, but it's at least one of them that the true rightful kings and queens of Narnia stay in. But the witch has built her own palace. She won't even stay there. So Mr. Beaver's like, now that all 4 of y'all are here, she's gonna be trying to track y'all down and get rid of you as quickly as possible. And they're like, okay, well, what's so important about there being 4 of us? And I'm paraphrasing some of this because it's like a whole paragraph, but it is another prophecy in Narnia that down at Cair Paravel there are 4 thrones, and it's a saying in Narnia that when 2 sons of Adam and 2 daughters of Eve sit in those 4 thrones, then it will be the end not only of the White Witch's reign but of her life. That's why they have to be so careful in getting the children to the stone table, because the witch will be trying to intercept them if they find out that the children are there in Narnia. And then as they were talking about this, they realize that Edmund is no longer at the table. They quickly go outside, they're calling for him, but at this point there is a blizzard coming down. They don't see any tracks, and Edmund already gave himself away in that he's been to Narnia before, and I think he might have said something else that kind of makes his siblings think that he actually met up with the witch. And Mr. Beaver's like, well, at this point he's a lost cause. He's probably going to the White Witch right now to say that y'all are all here. Like, he's under her spell. So I've got to get the rest of y'all to the stone table, and Aslan will have to deal with the rest. So Mrs. Beaver quickly packs up some food and blankets or whatever, and they leave, headed towards the stone table. At this point, the book kind of switches between the Pevensey children and the Beavers and Edmund. So I'm gonna switch back and forth. I just may not switch when the book does. So like I said, I'm not trying to keep track of exactly what things happen. This is just plot summary, really doesn't matter that much. So the Beavers and the Pevensey children, they head out, and they're on foot, so they are trudging through the snow all night long. It seems like walking until everyone is so exhausted that they're basically walking and sleeping at the same time. Like, they're miserable. And finally, Mr. Beaver brings them to a little burrow in the ground where they are completely hidden, and they lay down for the night. Switch to Edmund. He makes it to the witch's castle. He sees all the stone statues. He meets with the chief of the police for the witch, and he goes and gets her, and she's like, well, where's the rest of your siblings? And Edmund gives all the information away. He's like, they're here, but they're at the Beaver's house. I couldn't get them to come with me. And at this point, she ignores Edmund. He gets tied up. The witch summons her dwarf that drives her sleigh and has her sleigh be readied for a journey, but without the bells. And I think, as of right now, the timing's a little odd, so I don't know if the witch waited a while to leave. Well, I guess you had to give Edmund time to get to her castle, so I don't know. But eventually they leave. I think it's the next morning that they leave. I could be wrong. I think they go directly to the stone table. I don't think they go to the Beaver's house first, but who knows? I don't know. I don't think the book even says. So Edmund is tied up, but he is brought along with the witch and the dwarf on this journey to the stone table to intercept his other siblings. Now I'll switch back to our main group of the Beavers and the other Pevensey children. They wake up to the sound of sleigh bells, and they think it's the witch because, as far as they know, her sleigh has sleigh bells on it. And Mr. Beaver crawls out of the burrow to check it out, and after a while he tells them, hey, it's okay, it's not the witch, come out here. They go out and they see Father Christmas. As we know from earlier, the witch has made it to where it's always winter and never Christmas, and Father Christmas has not been allowed in Narnia. He has a big breakfast for them all, but first he gives everyone a gift. He gives the Beavers gifts, but I'm not gonna go through those. I'm gonna read what he gives the children. Peter, Adam's son, said Father Christmas. Here, sir, said Peter, these are your presents. And they are tools, not toys. The time to use them is perhaps near at hand. Bear them well. And with these words, he handed to Peter a shield and a sword, and it explains what they looked like. It had, I believe, like the crest of Narnia on them. It was all the right size and weight for Peter. Peter was silent and solemn as he received these gifts, for he felt they were a very serious kind of present. Susan, Eve's daughter, these are for you. He handed her a bow and a quiver full of arrows and a little ivory horn. You must use the bow only in great need, for I do not mean you to fight in the battle. It does not easily miss, and when you put this horn to your lips and blow it, then wherever you are, I think help of some kind will come to you. Last of all, Lucy, Eve's daughter, and Lucy came forward. He gave her a little bottle of what looked like glass, but people said afterwards that it was made of diamond, and a small dagger. In this bottle, he said, there is a cordial made of the juice of one of the fire flowers that grow in the mountains of the sun. If you or any of your friends are hurt, a few drops of this will restore you, and the dagger is to defend yourself at great need, for you also are not to be in the battle. That was kind of paraphrased. I did leave out some words, so it was quicker to read. So all the children are given these great gifts that will come in handy later on, and they eat their breakfast, and Father Christmas is off to bring more presents to more people. After they've had their breakfast, they pack back up and head on towards the stone table. And as they're walking towards the stone table, they are seeing the snow quickly melt, and there's a big river that they pass by, and they hear the ice breaking up and the river beginning to flow again. And they finally make it to the stone table, where they see Aslan and the good Narnians that still believe in Aslan, which is his army. Now, switch back to Edmund. He's riding on the sleigh with the witch, and they're also seeing the snow beginning to melt until they can no longer use the sleigh, and they all have to go on foot. And Edmund is very miserable. He sees how stupid he's been in believing in the witch, and he's kind of sorry for it, but he's feeling more sorry for himself than what he did. Eventually, the witch and the dwarf and Edmund, they stop, and the witch is discussing things with the dwarf, and I think she calls her head police Wolf, or maybe she sent him before they even left the castle, but she sends him and some other wolves to go to the stone table in case the rest of the children are there, and she commands him to, at this point, do away with any of them. She doesn't even want them in prison. She just wants them done away with so that the prophecy can't come true. Now let's switch back to the stone table and what is going on. Aslan, I think, greets the beavers and thanks them for bringing the Pevensey children to him safely. And then he addresses, I think, mostly Peter. He asks where the fourth is, meaning Edmund, and Peter actually takes the blame and apologizes. He says that he was being a bit nastier to him than he should have been, and that's kind of the reason why he's taken to the witch and listened to her. Aslan kind of, I forget exactly what he says, but basically acknowledges that Peter feels sorry for it and tells him that basically it'll be okay, you know, what's done is done. And he takes Peter off to the side and speaks to him. Before we go any further, I want to mention that the stone table is kind of set atop a hill, and the hill is filled with like trees and forest, but as you get to the top of the hill, it's like a bare field, and there's a stone table. I think there's a little pavilion, and it's a lot of open space. So Aslan walks with Peter and tells him that he's meant to be the High King over Narnia and to sit at Cair Paravel, and you can actually see Cair Paravel and the sea that it is on from this hill, and he points it out to Peter, and it's just telling him, I guess, how to be a great leader. Honestly, can't remember everything they say. But as they're nearing the end of their conversation, they hear the sound of a horn. And Aslan tells Peter that it is Susan's horn. Lucy comes running up. She's pale and says that someone or something tried to attack her and Susan. Lucy got away, but Susan has been treed. Peter turns around and sees it's a wolf. And Aslan tells the rest of his army to back off and let Peter have his first fight. Peter fights off these wolves. He does away with a few of them, but at least one does get away. And at this point, Aslan does allow some of his army to follow the wolf. Let's switch once again to Edmund, the witch, and the dwarf. They're still in the forest when a wolf runs up to them, tells them what happened at the stone table, and that the children are still very much safe and with Aslan. The witch gets upset, but she turns to the dwarf and is like, okay, well, there's only one thing left that we can do now that the other three children are with Aslan. And the dwarf ties Edmund to a tree and positions his head back, and Edmund doesn't know what's going on, but Edmund does hear an odd sound, and at the last moment realizes it is the sound of a knife being sharpened. And the witch comes up to him, is holding the knife in the air, about to bring it downward upon him, when there's a great commotion and some of Aslan's army knock the knife out of the witch's hand. But after that, she disappears. Some of them rush to Edmund, untie him, make sure he's okay. The rest are looking for the witch and the dwarf, but they have seemingly disappeared into thin air. So, with nothing left to do, they bring Edmund to the stone table and to Aslan. Once Edmund is brought to Aslan, Aslan takes him on a little walk. And although we don't know what is said, by the end of it, Edmund apologizes to all of his siblings and is seemingly reformed. And so this talk with Aslan, everything that he has gone through, has changed him. This is why The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is one of my favorite stories. I'll get into it later because more happens with Edmund, but I love the redemption arc of Edmund and somewhat Peter, but I really love it. So Edmund, I believe, is given a sword, although he doesn't get a gift from Father Christmas. And they are, I guess, celebrating Edmund's return, I really don't know, when the witch's dwarf asks to have a word with Aslan. He agrees, and the dwarf says that the witch wants to have a meeting with Aslan. Aslan agrees as long as she leaves her wand at some certain tree or whatever before approaching this area. So the witch comes up to Aslan and tells him that he has a traitor on his hands, and he knows it, meaning Edmund, and that by the deep magic in Narnia and in this whole world, that any traitor's blood is hers to have, meaning any traitor is hers to do what she pleases, and most of the time that means her doing away with them, at least as far as I know. But Aslan tells everyone to fall back from him and the witch and let them talk in private, and they do. And after a while, Aslan tells them that they can come back, that the witch has renounced her claim on Edmund, and everyone cheers. And the witch turns to go, and she says, well, how do I know you're gonna follow through with your deal? He just lets out a very loud roar that scares her, and she turns and goes away. Once she's gone, Aslan tells everyone that they need to pack up because the stone table and this field will be needed for other purposes later. So they pack up and they head out. As they are traveling, Aslan speaks with Peter the whole time about the coming battle, because Peter will be the leader of this battle. Aslan's telling Peter which animals and which creatures are best in which areas, their strengths, their weaknesses, and Peter asks if Aslan will be there at the battle, and Aslan just says that he can't guarantee that he'll be there. And this part Susan and Lucy do hear. So they make it to their destination, they set up camp, eat dinner, and go to sleep. Or supper. I really don't know the difference. I'm from Mississippi, and I don't know the difference between supper and dinner. I use them interchangeably. I know one technically means lunch. I don't know the difference. I'm in Mississippi, but my mother grew up in South Carolina, and some of their wording is different. So like my mom never really used supper and dinner. We say breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I don't even know. But they eat dinner, supper, whatever, the meal at the end of the day, and go to sleep. But Susan and Lucy, they're in the same tent, but they both have trouble sleeping. And eventually they both acknowledge that the other is still awake and they can't sleep. And they wonder if Aslan is just going to up and leave them. They don't think he's going to, but they're worried about it. So they both decide to get up and go out of the tent and find him. As they're exiting their tent, they do see Aslan walking out of camp back the direction that they had come earlier that day. They decide to follow him quietly, and they do for a little while until they get to an open area where the girls can't stay hidden any longer. And Aslan asks them why they're following him. They apologized, said they couldn't sleep, and asked if they could go with him. He agreed as long as they agree to stop following him when he tells them to. They agree and they continue on. And Aslan he's very quiet and he seems very sad. His tail is dragging the ground, and every so often he'll kind of stumble and his head will hit the ground. He's just holding himself so heavily. And at one point when he stumbles, the girls both grab him and hold him around the neck. And Aslan, or maybe Aslan asked them to so that he wouldn't feel so lonely. So we do kind of get the feeling that he feels very lonely and very sad. They're traveling the exact same way that they had just come earlier that day from the stone table until they get to the hill that the stone table is on, and they go up the hill. And when they get to the last line of bushes and brush before you get to the field that the stone table is in or on, Aslan tells the girls to hide behind a bush. They do, and Aslan continues up to the stone table by himself. Standing around the stone table is the witch and her army. So all of the mythical creatures that are bad are all on her side. There's hags, ogres, I think some giants, although some giants are on Aslan's side. Wolves, any bad creature is on her side, and even some of the trees are on her side, although the majority of them are on Aslan's side. So Aslan approaches them, and the witch mocks him for coming, and she demands that they tie him up. And the people her army is understandably scared of him, but they do tie him up, and he doesn't fight once. And as soon as he's tied up, the whole army just goes at mocking him and just saying awful things about him to him, just being very awful. And the witch calls for them to put a muzzle on him. They do. They bind him even more to the stone table. So they tied him up first, and then once they put him on the stone table, they tied him up even more, has a muzzle on him. And then after that, they shave his mane. And this whole time, they're just saying awful things to him, doing awful things to him. When finally the witch pulls out a very wicked looking knife and holds it above him. And at this point, Susan and Lucy look away, and we know what happened. And they all cheer. Once they're done cheering, they turn around and go find Aslan's army so they can start this battle that is coming up. Once the witch and her army are gone, Susan and Lucy come out from behind the bush and go up to the stone table where Aslan is lying, and they just cry uncontrollably. They try to clean him up best they can and also try to untie the cords that are binding him, but it's too hard for them to do. And they take the muzzle off of him and just sit beside him and cry all night until they can't cry anymore. At one point, they see and hear rustling in the grass, and they see mice come out of the grass onto the stone table and start nibbling at Aslan, and they realize that they are gnawing through the cords that are holding Aslan. So they free him from the cords, and Susan and Lucy turn around so their backs are to the stone table. They look over the sea as the sun's rising when they hear a very loud crack come from behind them. They're a little scared, but when they turn around, the stone table is broken in half and Aslan is no longer there. But from behind them, they hear a voice. They turn around and there's Aslan. At first they think it's a ghost, and they realize that he's real. He's come back to life, and he's very jovial and happy, and he's telling the girls to try to catch him as he's running around the field. But after a moment, he's like, okay, I have enough strength now. Get on my back. We've got things to do. And they ride Aslan all the way to the witch's castle. The witch nor her army are at her castle because they are waging a war against Aslan's army. But Aslan enters her castle and starts turning the stone statues back into their living, breathing forms. And as he's bringing life back to these stone statues, he's telling them to basically like ransack the whole castle, look into every door, every passageway, every hidden little corner to find the rest of the stone statues so that he can bring them back to life. They do that, and Lucy actually finds Mr. Tumnus, and he's saved. And once everyone has been brought back to life, they leave the witch's castle and go towards the battle. When they get to the battleground, they see there are a few stone statues in the field, but the witch at this point is fighting with her knife, so she no longer has her magic wand, and she's actually fighting, I think, Peter. So Aslan is bringing his second wave of the army, and he takes over for Peter, and he does away with the witch very quickly. And after that, the rest of her army doesn't really care to continue fighting now that she's gone, so they run away. And some of Aslan's army actually chase after them and do away with the ones they can catch, and the rest of the witch's army that did get away are in hiding. So now the battle is over, and Edmund was actually injured, but Lucy uses her vial and he gets better, and she was tasked with also helping everyone else who were at the point of death. And Aslan, as he's talking to Peter, he's, I guess, congratulating him on the battle, and Peter actually turns that around to Edmund, and he's like, well, actually, Edmund really helped us out. Everyone was going for the witch, and she was turning them into stone, and then Edmund thought to go for her wand and broke it in half, so then she couldn't turn anyone else into stone. But this just goes to show how far Peter and Edmund have both come since coming to Narnia and starting to believe in Aslan. And it just goes to show how Aslan is changing lives. So after this battle, I think they sleep that night, get up, and travel to Cair Paravel, and then go to sleep again. And then the next day is the coronation of the Pevensies, but don't hold me to it. It's not really that important. But at the coronation of the Pevensies, there's a big celebration, and Aslan tells them, once a king or queen in Narnia, always a king or queen. Bear it well, sons of Adam, bear it well, daughters of Eve. So there's that little saying, which comes into play a little bit later. And then the last few pages of the book just tell about the reign of the Pevensies. And the Pevensie children actually live out their lives in Narnia. They grow older in Narnia. And the time of their reign is actually referred to as the Golden Age of Narnia later. Years later in Narnia. I want to read y'all something. And they themselves grew and changed as the years passed over them. And Peter became a tall and deep-chested man and a great warrior, and he was called King Peter the Magnificent. And Susan grew into a tall and gracious woman with black hair that fell almost to her feet. And the kings of the countries beyond the sea began to send ambassadors asking for her hand in marriage. And she was called Queen Susan the Gentle. Edmund was a graver and quieter man than Peter, and great in counsel and judgment. He was called King Edmund the Just. But as for Lucy, she was always gay and golden-haired, and all princes in those parts desired her to be their queen, and her own people called her Queen Lucy the Valiant. I love this little paragraph here at the end of the book, because at the beginning we see Peter. To me, he seemed a lot quieter than Edmund. Obviously, Edmund was a brat, but he became a great warrior. And it even said during the battle at the stone table between the wolves when they were trying to get Lucy and Susan that he felt sick at the thought of fighting, but he did it anyways. And I just love that he becomes such a great warrior. And Edmund was a graver and quieter man than Peter, and great in counsel and judgment. The fact that Edmund started out being the absolute worst, brattiest, meanest, insufferable little boy to being very quiet and known as being wise in counsel, like people going to him for advice. The character arc, the redemption of Edmund's character in this book is why I love it so much. And that's why it's number one when I try to rank these books. Now, Susan, to me, she was gracious, sure. Susan and Lucy both, like, yeah, the story's about them, but to me, I don't see the most change. Like, I don't see that much change in them. But Edmund especially, like, this story is really, it's about Edmund. Peter has a little bit of, like, a change, but even with him, like, it wasn't like he was just completely scared of conflict, because he would tell Edmund off when he was in the wrong. But Edmund, the complete change that Aslan brought him, I love it so much. So, it does say that they reigned for years, and one day they were on a hunting trip, and they went through an area of the woods that they weren't the most familiar with, but they come upon a lamppost, although at the time they didn't really know the name of it, because like the wood between the worlds in the last book, in this book, the longer you're in Narnia, the more your past life seems like a dream. But they get the feeling that if they keep going past the lamppost, they'll find a great adventure. And they decide to keep walking past the lamppost, and they do. They find themselves in the wardrobe, and they all fall out of the wardrobe at the same moment that they had gone in, still hearing the housekeeper in the passage. And they decide to go to the professor and tell him about what happened to them. The professor believes them, of course. We know he's Diggory Kirke from the last book. And he tells them that they shouldn't speak about Narnia openly and freely unless they are alone, or unless they find someone who has gone to Narnia themselves. And he also tells them that to not try to go back through the wardrobe to Narnia, because they won't go back by that route. And he confirms, of course, you'll get back to Narnia again someday. Once a king in Narnia, always a king in Narnia. But don't go trying to use the same route twice. He said, indeed, don't try to get there at all. It'll happen when you're not looking for it. And, okay, that is the end of the story, right? But to me, my thoughts behind this is Diggory's gone to Narnia once that we know of in The Magician's Nephew. So, I wonder how he knows the saying, once a king of Narnia, always a king of Narnia. As Aslan tells him, once a king or queen of Narnia, always a king or queen of Narnia. Diggory just knows once a king in Narnia, always a king in Narnia. And from the series, we don't know if Diggory ever went to Narnia. There's the Magician's Nephew and then this one right after. But I like to think that Diggory did go back and that he did become a king in Narnia, because he knows that phrase, and unless I'm misremembering, that phrase was not in The Magician's Nephew. So I like to think that maybe Diggory had gone to Narnia, and maybe he was a king in Narnia. That's just a little, I don't know what it would be called. That's just my thoughts on it. And also the fact that you'll go back to Narnia, just not by the same route twice. Which Diggory would know that. He buried the rings. He wasn't allowed to go back to Narnia using the rings. But how would he know that they're going back to Narnia? Unless he himself went back. And I don't think there's a possibility that other people went to Narnia because of what happened in the last battle. But that is far off. But if you've read the series, you know what I'm talking about. There were only so many people that have gone to Narnia that met with Diggory and the Pevensies. Like the Diggory, Polly, the Pevensies, the other people that come in later books that have all gone to Narnia, they all know each other. They all sit down and talk like once a week at dinner about Narnia. And there's no mention of anyone else. So yeah, Diggory could have like mentored other people that went to Narnia, like he was with the Pevensies. But I don't think that's what happened. I think Diggory did go back to Narnia and he became a king. And in the book, I just skimmed over it, and unless I missed it and I'm misremembering, all it says about Diggory and Narnia is this is when he made the apple tree wood into the wardrobe. And though he himself did not discover the magic properties of that wardrobe, someone else did. That was the beginning of all the comings and goings between Narnia and our world, which you can read of in other books, meaning this book is the beginning of all the comings and goings. So all it says about Diggory is that he didn't find out the magical properties of the wardrobe himself. But it doesn't say that he never went to Narnia again. So I will take it to my grave. This is the hill I will die on, that Diggory did in fact go back to Narnia and become a king. Anyways, I'm trying to think if I want to talk over anything in the book. I sat down with Grace Lee for like 2 hours and we went through all of the books and talked about some of the similarities in the books and in real life in the Bible. Because the Chronicles of Narnia, in my opinion, he took inspiration from the Bible and from real life and wrote it into the Chronicles of Narnia. So I talked a little bit about it in The Magician's Nephew at the end of that video. And The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Aslan, obviously, is Jesus. There's a quote. I felt weird about saying that, but there's a quote from C.S. Lewis, I think, that he basically says that when he was writing the series, he was thinking, if there is another world like ours, how would God present himself? And he chose a lion. So Narnia, that world, is basically just an identical twin of our world, but God is seen as a lion there. And instead of, when God come down to earth, clothed himself in flesh, he was a man. But in Narnia, there's talking animals, there's mythical creatures. So I feel weird saying, oh, Aslan is Jesus, but if you look at it that way, it doesn't sound quite so weird. But Aslan is like Jesus. That is Narnia's version of Jesus. And Edmund is a representation of the whole world. We're all traitors to God. But he died on the cross for us, like Aslan died to redeem Edmund. And the part of Edmund's blood belonging to the witch kind of reminds me of the blood sacrifices in the Old Testament. The Israelites had to give sacrifices in atonement for their sins before Jesus come down to earth. And then Jesus died for us, and that blood became our atonement for our sins. So now we don't have to do blood sacrifices anymore. We pray, we repent, God forgives us. So all of that, that's kind of that similarity. And that's why I love Edmund's story so much, is Edmund is a representation of all of us. We sin, and we're traitors to God until we choose to follow him, and we pray for repentance, and we're baptized, which the baptism part is not in this book, but I do love that it actually does kind of show up in another book. So I'm excited to talk about that when we get to that book. So I think that's the biggest similarity between The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and what's in the Bible, how the real world and the Lord works. But yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and I enjoyed filming it.